Okay, then we're recording. I'll hand over to you, Liz.
Okay.
Was you going to share the screen, or sorry?
Yeah, I'll share the screen now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what they want to also say is that we'll probably do this presentation for about an hour, as it's bonfire night, 5th of November. So you'll get half the presentation and the other half next week. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine. Okay.
Can everybody see that? Can just put your thumbs up. You can't see it now. No. Can you see it now? Great. We've got thumbs up, Liz. So
Okay.
people can see the presentation.
Okay, lovely. Well, welcome everybody and good evening. It's really nice to be back with you again. And if you haven't met me before, I'm Liz and I'm a trustee of WFDA, and I'm also managing the Inspire project for young people who are at risk of offending. My work involves, I support adults either at university getting disability student allowance, but I've also for many years supported adults in the workplace. And tonight I'm coming to you with that hat on and bringing my experience to share. I'll hand over to Marcia.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I'm Marcia, and I am a trustee of the WFDA. I'm also a qualified careers advisor, and I currently work within the local authority supporting parents and young people to empower them in regards to the special educational needs. So anything to do with education, whether it's tribunals, EHC plans. So that's kind of my current role now. And yeah, I'm here to, from the perspective of somebody who's neurodivergent, and just sharing my experience and yes, having a discussion really about finding your voice if you don't feel you have that within the workplace. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, so this session, just an overview of what we're going to cover. Like Catherine said, though, we won't do all of it tonight. We'll cover some next week as well. But we will give, hopefully you'll contribute and share your comments and experiences and ask questions. We're going to do a general introduction and then talk about reasonable adjustments, a little bit about access to work. That has been covered quite a lot, we found, in the adult meetups. But we will look at access to work, what the needs assessment is for people who haven't been through the process, and talk a bit about assistive technology in the workplace and what the coaching involves. We'll try and explain that and look at approaches and strategies and then share some tips. Okay, I just wanted to start really by saying where we were coming from and where the stance really that we're taking. It's about, I think sometimes, particularly in the workplace and with managers, colleagues, it's almost like it's the medical model. And that's one of the risks of, and I think some people feel a bit self-conscious about going down the route of access to work or getting support, is, that you're something to be fixed. And I don't see that at all. And we basically take the social model of disability, and that's why in the presentation you'll see we talk a lot about the environment, the office environment, the work environment, and that it's an organizational approach we come at. It's not about fixing you, it's about helping you manage the workplace, but what processes, what support can be put into place to help you work to your strengths and for you to sort of flourish really in the workplace. Do chip in, Marcia, if you
no, that's
want
absolutely right.
to.
So do you want me to say that?
Just say something, Liz, about the social model. The social model is very different to the medical model in that it is the responsibility of society. It's not the responsibility of you. The medical model is very much about the individual's responsibility, and it's not recognised at all, really. And yes, you do find people practicing the medical model, but in most policy, it should be the social model.
Yeah.
And that's all about society making the adjustments for you.
Yeah.
And I think, thank you, Catherine. And I think that's why the word, some people don't feel that they're disabled. And it's not actually people that are disabled, it's the environment, it's society, it's the organisation, it's the workplace that disables you, it's policies, practices, procedures. So it's about tackling that and looking from a holistic perspective, really.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I think the medical model comes into play a lot when you're doing assessments, diagnosis, and you hear the terms condition. Those are where the medical model comes in, but we do need elements of the medical model to have a diagnosis. So I think that's important to say there. But yeah, we are definitely coming from the social model.
Yeah, it's all about being able to access support. So you have to kind of maybe jump through hoops or get that diagnosis, make sure you can access the support.
And I think it's really important, because I was just going to say that I guess I was always, from my perspective, looking at the medical model as I've got a condition, I've got the issue. And so it's great. We know this is the way we're working forward and moving forward as hopefully as a society, and with more awareness and us always talking about it, you know, to make that change. So one of the things what we thought is important to sort of talk about the steps and the process to how that works in terms of when you're looking at the workplace. And the first thing which we is about disclosure. I remember when I attended the WAC, the Achievability, when they were doing the WAC report, but lots of discussions around disclosure. And I remember some people saying they don't disclose for the fact that they felt that they likely to get more interviews when they don't disclose. And this is really an interesting discussion, because I've always disclosed through, you know, my diagnosis from when I was diagnosed from I was 16, any kind of employment I've always disclosed. So that's always a discussion. And maybe when we do go out in the breakout rooms, if we do go this today, it'll be something really interesting to hear people's points of view. So getting a diagnosis is another step. Some people, as we know, haven't got a full diagnosis, but there is a diagnosis assessment that can be done. Some people have had that at their workplace, and for some of us, we may have had it when we were at school, primary school, college, or university, or paid for it privately. So that's one step. And the next part of that would be applying for access to work. It's interesting, I always say this is a hidden secret. Some people don't know about access to work, and I know people who are self-employed and don't know that they can, and they have a disability and don't know about access to work. So it's something that we always talk about within WFDA, because we feel it's something that can help you have reasonable adjustments within your workplace to support you in accessing your work and having structures and strategies to, you know, just for your day-to-day job, and get informed and know more about ARCSing. I've learned to ARC so much more. Even though I've diagnosed, I've always still been quite quiet and reserved about it, but now I feel like, because I talk about it more, I've become more confident. But it's not always, but I've become better at sort of asking for what I want. So we just felt these were vital steps that we would share with you in terms of talking about the process. So I hope that's helpful.
And if I could just say, in terms of access to work, that isn't the only route. And we are going to talk about access to work, but some employers don't like to go through access to work, and they'll finance it directly. And then you can sort of look for agencies that will, organisations that will provide the coaching and the needs assessment. And there are consultancies that do that. You don't have to go through access to work if your employer doesn't want to, or if you don't fall within the eligibility criteria. So it's not the only way to get support. And some employers are actually quite supportive and will pay for what you need. Just to talk about reasonable adjustments and what they are. I'll just put it out there. I'll tell you what, I'll just take the I'll just take off the presentation a minute, and I'll stop sharing for a second. It's it feels very strange not having people there in a way. I just want to tell you, is everyone here familiar with the term reasonable adjustments? What does it mean to you? Would people like to take off their mute and contribute? Or if you're not sure about the term, if you're not sure about what the term means, do please feel free.
Yeah, I'll say, to me, it's about having adjustments put in place that help you, that give you the same opportunities as a neurotypical person. Yeah, I'm just trying to think how else I can reword it. So not really opportunities, but it gives you the ability to work at your potential. It gives you a fairer chance.
Thank you,
So
Sadia. Yeah, some people use the phrase levelling the playing field.
Yeah.
There's a very good comment from Anne's iPad. Anne, do you want me to read it out, or will you say it yourself?
Hi everyone. Yeah, just to say that this is really good tonight. I'm a dyslexia assessor myself, and I've just completed training on accessing for assessing people in the access for work, and I've also just been awarded a grant for resources. I've had lots of ICT, some training which is hopefully forthcoming. Really good resources. It's definitely worth applying for.
So there you've got an example of reasonable adjustments.
Anyone else? I think Sandra, did you want to say something?
No, it was just because I had some problems at work. I mean, I've got 2 jobs, but I don't do office work because I've always found it difficult for someone like me. But just being in Tesco's or just working for the Leisure Centre, when I have to do anything for reading, for an example, when was it? Yesterday when I was at work, they just came and gave me a sheet and said to me, can you read it and sign it? So I had it and I looked at it. I didn't understand it all. So I said, oh, well, I either need to take it home or someone needs to sit down and explain it to me, because I said, I've been here for 8 years and I keep repeating myself and saying that I am dyslexic and that I need help with certain things, and I just don't seem to get paid any attention whatsoever.
Right. Have you had anyone external come in and or had any support through Access to Work?
No, no, I haven't. But even with my other job as well, they always they like to do a lot of stuff online, and when they change the system around as well, and I call them up to ask them about, they always say to me, you need to go into your local Leisure Centre to ask them to help you sort it out. But then when I go to the Leisure Centre, they're telling me I need to go back to HR for them to actually help me sort it out. So it's always, everything for me has always been sort of up in the air, and I've always had to sort of get through it myself or just get someone else to help me sort it out.
This is where a third person can be really good as an advocate and to explain and kind of almost, you know, insist that your employer listens and addresses and puts reasonable adjustments in place.
It is something that we might be able to do for you, Sandra, just to do a bit of advocacy for you. If that's what you think you need.
Okay, I mean, one of the leaders that I spoke to, her comment was, I don't have time to speak to everyone individually. And I said to her, well, the person before you didn't speak to everyone individually, but she would speak to me and then send out emails for everyone else. But obviously she wasn't happy with that. So, and then obviously lockdown has happened now, so.
Well, I think as an advocate is really important, you know, and you're hooked into the WFDA, so the WFDA can help you with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking if you put your details in, Sandra, I'd be more than happy to speak to you and think about a strategy of moving forward, yeah?
So when you say put it in on that little message thing.
In the
Yeah, if
chat.
you put it in the chat, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
brilliant.
You can do
And
it.
you can send it direct to Liz, can't you, if you wanted to?
Do it privately, Sandra.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it to everybody. Just click on the arrow on the blue strip and go click on Liz, and you can send it privately.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try and
Yeah.
figure that out. Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
grab us at the end, yeah?
otherwise,
Okay.
Okay, I'll move back to the,
otherwise I'll contact you by email, okay? And hook you
Okay.
up. Right.
Does anybody else have any just before anybody else
Yeah,
understand what reasonable
I want,
adjustments are? Yeah.
It's Sujan. Yeah, I
Sujan.
did. So originally, I didn't know that there was a problem. And so I was obviously falling behind with my work, and there was quite a high demand for, quite high turnover for work and high speed work. And I was working in a very busy department, so everybody had to work really hard, really fast. And so the pressure was on everyone. And when you're a dyslexic in that environment where the pressure never lets up, and there were all sorts of issues like staffing shortages and, managerial issues and so on. So it's very difficult to raise these issues, when you know that. I'm not saying you shouldn't raise them. What I'm saying is that if you work in a very busy place where you know there's very huge demands on all the staff, it's difficult to raise these issues. So I kept quiet for many years, not really knowing what the problem was. Anyway, eventually I did get into a bit of trouble, and basically then I had to I looked into it myself. I actually didn't get help with the employer. As it happened, I worked for a college, a university, and I took advantage of the university screening for students. And rather than go via the HR department, I took it on my own responsibility. Talking about the social, I took it upon myself because my manager never offered to help me. HR never offered to help me. So I took it upon myself to say, okay, this is being offered. It's the beginning of the year. Why don't I do it? So I spoke to the person running the screening, and they were terribly helpful. And they said, yeah, we can sneak you in. You're not a student, but we'll sneak you in. And it was an eye-opener. And, I had no idea. Okay, I wasn't very severely dyslexic, but I was medium. And then from there, then I got access to counselling, which then gave me confidence to then raise it with my employer, because as I said, the pressure was really on for everybody. And so then when I raised it and I brought these, then I was told to go to HR. And again, it was always, the onus was on me to raise it rather than my boss to raise it. So again, it was the individual's responsibility, which I found very difficult because I didn't know really what dyslexia was. Anyway, eventually I had a full assessment, and then it came back to the HR, and then HR contacted my employer. So I did get access for work. I should emphasize, depending on the organization you're with, and also the resources of access to work or access for work, it does take a very, very long time. It's not a quick fix. And meanwhile, you have to cope in the environment. So that's another issue. But meanwhile, anyway, it's good to raise. I do believe it's important. If you know there is a problem, then you should seek help. And I'm glad that eventually I had the courage through the counselling to raise these issues and ask for help. Of course, that help should have been available from the beginning. Let's see. I think I've frozen.
No, you haven't. You have.
Oh, somebody, Marcy is frozen, I think. Anyway, so thanks, Catherine. So anyway, what I wanted to say was that it's important to get help. There is a discrepancy between what is understood by reasonable adjustments with the employer and what access to work mean. So I think that issue should be discussed.
Yeah, can I just jump in there, if you don't mind, because I think Sujan just articulated very much my situation, in that, you know, high pressure job, lots of deadlines and that sort of thing, office work, and I've just been recently screened for neurodivergence. And so this is something that I'm coming to very, very new, and feeling very apprehensive about actually raising it at work with my my line manager. So it's been really, really good to hear these testimonials, and to know that there's a route that I can access that would make it a lot easier for me in the workplace.
You do have to do it within a time frame, though. I think it's months from the beginning of a job. And it's quite interesting what Sujan's saying about the discrepancy between reasonable adjustments and access to work. I think it's actually your advisor. You know, people get advisors and they change. Access to Work have said they will make sure that individuals have one advisor, because the assessment is so important to get what it is you need in order to be able to function in the workplace. And when you get multiple advisors looking after a client, that's not helpful.
I mean, I have to say that it was a slow process of renegotiating adjustments all the time, and that's how it should be. You should be monitored, and it should be regularly assessed as to, are you receiving enough support? Is it enough? And sometimes I had to compromise, because, as I said, I was working in a busy department, and so some of the things I could get, and some of them were just impossible for the employer to do. I mean, personally, I don't think it was impossible, but they weren't willing to do it, put it that way. They could have offered to redeploy me. They could have offered to, you know, I don't know, do something else, but they didn't. What their idea was that they compromised. They offered me some solutions, and I had to accept some of their decisions, that some things weren't possible to reasonably adjust. So, and I think that's an important part of keeping on side with your employer as well.
Yeah, and I think it's very important. If you're thinking about disclosing, which is obviously what you are thinking about doing, is it Stan Silas? Yes, Frank. You really got to weigh it up. You know, you've got to feel reasonably comfortable in disclosing. You need to feel comfortable in what you're doing in your job, and you need to feel confident in your line manager. Okay. And I would say that, to be honest, I think it's really important to disclose, but if you're disclosing in an environment that is not comfortable for you, I won't say hostile, but not comfortable, be careful, really be careful.
Yeah, my environment was completely hostile. And so I had to, like you said, I had to weigh it up. I had to get advice and assistance from outside, and until I had the confidence. Or, you know, you don't even have to get that confidence from within, even within the employer, the company. You can also get that confidence outside. I mean, basically, although it was geared towards dyslexia, the advice I had from the dyslexia counsellor was basically counselling. It was basically self-esteem, and telling me that, or making me aware that I had a right to ask for these things. that I shouldn't be denied these things. In fact, it was illegal to be denied these things, and that that it was perfectly fine to speak up and ask for them. Although she did say it's a negotiation process, and you do have to negotiate, and you can't always expect your employer to give you everything, but they should try as best as they can to offer you reasonable adjustments.
Okay, we've got some interesting comment in the chat. There's a comment from Jenny where she's saying my HR doesn't understand and thinks it should be fine about her speaking to my line manager without me there. Well, actually, I don't think that is fine, but it depends on the circumstances. But it's usually very sensitive when HR gets involved, and no, you should be there, actually. That's my feeling. I don't know how. Oh, people are nodding vigorously. That's good.
I just worry that if you're not there because they don't know what dyslexia is, two people that don't know what dyslexia is talking about it just sounds really dangerous to me. So I think I'm going to stick with it and stick by my guns if people think that's the right thing to do, because I think they'll confuse themselves if nothing else.
Completely right, Jenny, and and you've got people nodding vigorously here, so that gives you enough support. And my absolute gut reaction when I read your chat was no, don't let them do it. Be there, because you're the person educating them. We've got something else here from Anne's iPad. Anne, do you want to say your comment?
Yeah, it's just interesting. When I was a full-time primary school teacher, I didn't feel comfortable at disclosing, even though I was diagnosed way back in second year at uni, and I'm now 55. But now I'm self-employed, I feel okay doing it because I feel it gives me a strength to the people I'm assessing and the children I'm tutoring. And when I do training, I just bite the bullet and start the talk by saying I'm dyslexic, as I think I get more respect from doing that, because I'm showing a dyslexic can have a perfectly good work life, and it shows that I'm training from experience, which speaks to me much higher volumes than just reading from a book or something.
I think what we're getting out of this, and obviously we'll get back to Liz and Marcia, what we're getting out of this, the commonality in what everybody is saying is about having some power for yourself. We're not saying you should be control freaks, but you're the one who knows who you are. You're the one who knows how you feel and what happens to you, and you need to be part of that conversation. Whatever conversation is going on about you,
because you're the expert on you, aren't you? You know you best, and that conversation needs to happen definitely with you in there if you feel confident to have that conversation. It is about confidence and how you feel, because I can share from my journey. Even though I always disclose, it was that conversation to be really frank, and I used to just kind of find a way of just not talking about it and just get on with the job as best as I can. So, but I think as I've grown older, I've realized that it's not always served me well. So I've become more confident to speak my truth, if that makes sense. So I think it's really important.
I think it's a really careful business, actually, and it's very similar to when you get diagnosed as a neurodivergent person. To disclose is a kind of similar situation, and it's quite sensitive. I remember, and nobody should be allowed to make you disclose also. That is illegal. And I'll just share with you something. When I was working at a university many years ago, I was actually made to disclose, and I did disclose, and I got an assessment, and to prove it, because my assessment was years beforehand. And I had to have this meeting with the senior manager who looked at my assessment and said, "Oh, I see that you have remedial issues." And I am somebody who is a smart cookie, and this is And I looked at her and I thought, so that's what happens to somebody when they disclose after 20 years of working really hard at university and doing really well, and you finally disclose and you're told you're remedial. So I'm just telling you this to be careful, okay? I've got a doctorate, I'm a smart cookie, and I had a senior management manager telling me I'm remedial.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. I think some really important issues have come up, and that's why these discussions are so valuable, and that everyone's sharing their experiences. They're invaluable, really, these discussions.
Yeah,
and you've all had a range of experiences. Just picking up on a few points, if that's okay. I mean, one thing about what you just mentioned, Catherine, you know, do you want someone to see your full report? And I think it's really important that you have that discussion with the assessor. And I think that's something too, and that's why we want to share this with you, is that you have, you know, to have some control over the process and to have that discussion with the assessor as well, as whether they can be a summary. Do they have to see all of the, you know, all of the results? Do they have to see the full report? Could the assessor provide a summary really targeted just at the workplace and what is on a need-to-know basis? Just a couple of points Sujan made as well. I mean, unfortunately, you know, the process isn't great. It is far from, but it's what we've got, yeah? And the onus is on you. I've worked for many years, and you know, you do get employers who do pick it up, the line managers who just say, you know, have you ever thought you might be dyslexic? Or, you know, there's something going on here. Should we try and get you assessed? And they're proactive and supportive. But that's not the case for a lot of people. But the onus is on you to kind of, and it does wear people down. It's like you start this thing and you have to fight and getting your assistive technology, then getting getting everything, and you have to get you know, always contacting HR and book, you know, the purchasing, and is a purchasing order being done, and it can take months to get it into place. So this is why we want to kind of warn you. But you know, the employer, once it's out there, they have a responsibility. There is a legal duty. So, but that's why the trouble is with access to work, and the needs assessors, I think quite rarely do they have real awareness about neurodivergence, and they don't come in as an advocate. So making sure, if you can get that coaching, because that person who should be, and it comes up in the presentation, who should be knowledgeable and should have experience for the workplace and be able to explain and liaise and be a go-between with the organisation, and make sure that you discuss what is reasonable. If you think it's reasonable, then you know they need to support you in presenting your case. And also, you know, the organisation needs awareness, and I can share documents with you. You know, the BDA has advice for employers. They need to understand, you know, they need to be taught, you know, explained about what dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD is. And it can, yeah.
I was going to say, you can, as part of your assessment, actually request that there's training for the staff.
Yeah.
So that, I think that came up. I think Anne or somebody said in the chat that can you get training for your employees, and that is possible if you want that. I've always
it should be in the assessment as a recommendation.
Yeah, as a recommendation. I've always opted out, but for some people, I think that can be really useful. It's
really turned around some teams, actually. It's been, they're like, oh my goodness, you know, and you can turn things around. And I've worked in some pretty toxic situations. I mean, the one thing about disclosure is that it's difficult. It's a really, really sensitive issue. And like Catherine said, no one should be forced to. It's always someone's choice. And sometimes it's timing. But, you know, it's the age-old thing. If you don't disclose, you can't access support, and you are on your own. And also just the pressure of having to hide it and get by all the time. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And just the pressure and the anxiety and the stress. So that, you know, there are a number of factors, but if anyone's there at that point, please do use us as a resource. We can have that conversation. I'll have a meeting with you on Teams or Skype or something, and we can talk through and look at always look at the pros and cons, do a mind map, pros, cons, and then take your time. Yeah.
And I was to say, we've been through that process. You know, I've worn the T-shirt where I've stayed late, I've got up early to take work and stuff like that. But for me, the experience of having to disclose, now I know I've got that voice and that right, I will push it in terms of the policy. I will say, actually, this is, and it's not easy. I know people who are in corporate services and they've taken straight to occupational health, and sometimes it's like that very medical kind of model. Okay, we need fixing some way, and you know, but it can be testing and exhausting, but it's worth the push.
Can we respond to Frank in the chat?
Okay.
He said, do you need to have a full assessment before going down the access to work route? And
No.
you do not. But
No.
what you do need to do is, when you talk to your advisor, you do need to be really clear about your neurodivergence. And there are some trigger words that need to be said when you talk to the advisor about things like talking about coping strategies. That's a good one. Okay. And just talking about the environment and trying to adjust to the environment. There are some trigger words, and just explaining what your neurodivergence is. And they will actually accept you then, but you don't need to have a full assessment. It's and it's actually written in their documents. It's in their document for guidance for staff. It's because there was a big furore about it, because people who are physically disabled don't have to go through assessments. So a group of professionals got together, lobbied about it some time ago, and said, why should people with hidden disabilities have to go through this? So that is what they do now. Now, some advisors don't understand that and don't realise that, so you have to educate them.
That's excellent. That's really good to know. I'll be interested to know where I can get the, well, I guess I can get it from this group in terms of the coaching and what to say and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to have that discussion.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
But I just wanted to say about the training for the organisation. So in my assessment, yeah, it was recommended, but of course it wasn't taken up, you know, because they don't consider it a high priority. I mean, I don't think even the HR staff were trained in dyslexia management and staff management and so on, and dyslexia issues. Maybe like one person in HR might have been trained, I don't know, but definitely my manager, who was dealing with me, wasn't interested in taking up the training. You know, she is very high grade, and she just said, no, I don't have time for that kind of thing. I have a full program, you know. So, I mean, this is the problem, that I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't say it's to do with the stigma, but it's to do with the fact that people are very busy these days in the workplace, and they don't have time to deal with one individual's concerns. In the end, I did have to go back to HR and push it, and eventually I had to negotiate to get a little bit of help. Like, for instance, when I was taking minutes at meetings, I got a little bit of help. But I also felt it was a little bit patronizing, like, oh, she's a bit stupid. Oh, you have to, you know, say this in the minutes and say that. In actual fact, what I was being prompted for was political correctness, which is something completely different. And it wasn't to do with the dyslexia. But in any case, you know, I got some help in minute taking in meetings, because I found that very, very difficult. So yeah, again, it's a question of negotiating what you can get help with. And sometimes you might have to accept you can't get help with everything, because managers are very busy people, and the higher up they are, the busier they are. I mean, our manager could, you know, she couldn't even schedule a meeting with our department. Sometimes we went a whole month without a meeting. That was how busy she was. I mean, that's the ridiculousness of it.
Yes,
I think
prioritizing.
you've really raised a really important point, and it's a constant challenge within the workplace, is the whole thing about neurodivergence. It exposes bad working practices. It's about we're going in there, and sometimes, you know, I feel a bit like, you know, I just have to bite my lip and just say it, but this is good working practice. You know, this is all we're asking for. You know, and particularly things like time is money. But, you know, it's like that you're asking for gold dust sometimes. You know, I've been in a situation where I was talking about extra time or workload, managing someone's workload, reducing it a bit, and they start going, you know, and these big corporate firms, and they start going on about, you know, well, everyone works until 10 o'clock, you have to when you have to, and we, you know, so and so was pregnant. I said, are you not ashamed to say that one of your employees was 8 months pregnant and having to work at 10 o'clock at night? That's not something I would sing your praises about, you know. So but it is, you have to keep fighting your cause, but it's about prioritizing what would really make a difference to your experience at work. I think you have to choose your battles sometimes.
Yes, 100%.
Definitely.
Yeah. Choose your battles, prioritize what really makes a difference, and what could really ease your day and your working days, you know, the experience of your day. Yeah.
And make friends with your line manager, really. Your line manager is absolute key to all of this. And I've just put in the chat about ACAS, because ACAS have got some brilliant information about neurodivergence.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I might share it. I'll put it in the we can send an email with some links, because ACAS have got absolutely excellent stuff on neurodivergence and about how to speak to your employers, and also information for employers as well. So I always use their materials quite a lot to share with people.
And it is an organizational management thing, you know, it's about the whole, you know, because I work for a local authority, like, you know, just to get my access to work with the assistive technology was, if you would have thought they would have known about access to work and also about the software, it took months, because the IT wasn't talking to the left hand, and the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand, and they even wanted me to reorder the equipment. It was very stressful, shall I say? But this just shows you within the organisation the way the management, you know, as a whole, it's a bit of a jungle of bits and pieces. No one's really clear, and I think, you know, if I had the energy, it would be something I would do as a champion, to actually go up, you know, to the, you know, to leadership and talk about it a bit more. But it's just, I'm gonna have to pace myself. It's not something I can do right now and put the energy into it. But it is really bad for a local authority. So yeah, and it's exhausting, you know, and your manager's looking at you, well, why haven't you got the software? I've spent all this money, kind of thing. She actually mentioned that to me, and I know this space is confidential, so I'm sharing it. And I just thought, no, it's not actually my fault. And then she obviously saw after a while, when she could see all the emails I'd been doing, because again, like Suzanne's saying, I've had to do all of that work, and it just takes me back to when I was at school. I'm fighting for this, and this is, sometimes you have to kind of breathe, inhale, exhale, and then start again, because it can be traumatic almost, what it was for me, because I've done this all my life, you know, fighting. So it can be exhausting. And so do use buddies, your line manager, people you can talk to and share, just to offload and have that conversation. So do use us. And, you know, Lizzie said she's there, do use us, because I known if I didn't have some buddies or people I could trust in my employment, it would have been a very isolated and lonely place. And they got me through some dark places when it was just, I just couldn't breathe anymore, and I had to just find that space and energy to sort of find myself again and go back. But, you know, I'm consistent, and I will keep persevering, because it's something that's important for me to be able to access and do my work. So that's the stage where I've got to. So please do talk about it and share, even if you're not ready to disclose. Do find someone you can share. I really think it's really important for well-being as well, because I know about that, being bullied in the workplace. I really know about your mental health, and maybe some of you do as well. So it's really important that you take care of that.
I definitely do.
second
Well,
that.
I
Sorry,
mean,
go on.
the thing is, Marcia, what doesn't break you makes you stronger, and it's a simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely second that, because that
I don't agree.
I think probably a lot of us have all had that same sort of experience, because a bit like yourself, I was definitely bullied in workplace, and I'd take it more further, and then I felt quite embarrassed about it as well, even though I'd been open and honest with the new people that took over, and it was just awful. But since I've started at the new company, I've took a completely different approach, and I literally now I'm like dropping into every conversation when anybody says anything. You don't know I'm dyslexic. You don't know I'm dyslexic. I feel like a parrot now. But what I find weird, and they seem like a really good company. Everybody's been really supportive. I now have 5 bosses because of how they're structuring it. So I've got 5 bosses, 1 for care, 1 for strategic direction, 1 for technical support, 1 for the north and 1 for the south. Don't ask. But I've told them all, and they're all very supportive. But our HR team, which is big, when I've said about being dyslexic and got all this access to work, nobody seems to know about it, which I find weird, because it's a massive organisation, and I've signed up because they insist that everybody attends an equality workshop for 2 hours, and then you get this little badge on on people's emails. So I've signed up, and they say we want to change the way that people think and be an open and honest company, and I generally believe that from what everybody said, but everybody I've spoken to so far in HR don't seem to really understand what dyslexia is, and have never used access to work, and they're all wanting to support me, but nobody seems to understand it. So I'm signing myself up for a few weeks' time, and I intend to basically champion the dyslexia thing and say, your organisation seems great and you want to support me, but there doesn't seem to be diddly squat in place that anybody understands. And I feel, because they've so far been nice, I've only been there 3 months, but I feel with that, I can probably say it, and that might make it better for somebody else, because the main boss is dyslexic and he's hiding it. He told me, but nobody else knows. So I like, okay, and I've seen his emails are very similarly spelt to mine. So I find that, like, he's got his words back to front, and I was like, that's a dyslexic thing. So yeah, and just one last thing, then I will stop waffling. I'm using the detective software Dragon, and I said something to it, and I was sending it to my boss. Luckily, I spotted it first, because it typed something completely different and said I love to sexualize my clients. What I intended to.
Yeah,
And
you have to be careful with Dragon.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know what it was thinking. So that was it. Sorry, I'll stop now.
Can I just quickly mention about the use of unions? Because like you said, with access to work, there should be somebody directly liaising with the from access to work with the employer, or even like with the HR department, or even with the with your line manager, but that didn't happen. So instead, I found the union absolutely because it was basically it was a bullying and harassment issue. Now, I was already being bullied for other reasons. I don't know what they were. I have suspicion of being bullied for racist reasons, but of course I didn't take it any further. But there was an issue, and I was also bullied for lack of qualifications. But the real issue, which I felt was unacceptable, was a dyslexia. So I went to the union and I said, look, I'm being harassed and bullied because of the dyslexia. This is not on. I'm pretty sure this is not legal. And they were able to come on my side, and they came to every single negotiation meeting with me, major one, where what I was going to do, the hours I was doing, every occupational health type meeting that I had to go to. And that was really important, because it showed the employer that I was serious. And it also, when you speak for yourself, it's really hard to get them to listen. But when somebody else speaks for you, that makes a big difference. So I just want to, recommend that to anybody. If they have a good union, if they have anybody available in the union who can attend meetings with them. Sometimes the union rep didn't say anything and let me do the talking. But at the times when I was feeling vulnerable and I was not strong enough to negotiate, the union rep did everything for me, and I just nodded or said yes, and that was it. And so that was immensely helpful. So please do use your union, because if you're paying contributions, that's what it's there for.
Thanks you for sharing. Yeah, that's really
that's really good you've mentioned that. And I've worked with a lot of people who've had the union supporting them alongside them in their dealings with their employer. But having someone to support you, and particularly, you know, you can also have, if you've got a coach or dyslexia, you can ask for someone who's aware of dyslexia to be at meetings, performance meetings and things like that with you. But if you are able to tap into a union, then please do. Okay, were there any more messages in the chat or questions? Otherwise we can move on a bit.
There's an observation more than a question.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good observation. It's about organisations trying to be dyslexia friendly, and we know they can get kite marked by the DWP. They can have a disability kite mark. It doesn't take too much for them to get it either. And also saying that certificates on walls are good things, you know.
Yeah,
as long as they're practicing. Yeah,
the BDA does one as well.
Yeah.
And do remind me, I will send out, there's a really good document on neurodivergence that was made by the overriding body for HR. So I've used that in training, so I'll share that with you, and you can, like I say, just send it to your HR department. And I think, Becky, you would do a brilliant training, dyslexia awareness training, if you want some help in putting that together, and do it as a lunchtime workshop or something. But buddy, get someone, it could be another colleague, get someone or a mentor within the organisation. Don't just rely on your line manager, particularly if they're not very supportive. You need to get other people on your side.
I'm just aware of the time, so I don't know if we're going to just do the hour, or because this is a really good discussion. I don't know if we're just going to do the hour.
I don't mind going on a bit if other people want to.
Yeah.
Should we just do a couple of more slides?
Okay. So I think the slide with the next. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. No. So this is just from the about reasonable adjustments, and you can go to the link for the government. This is the government's website. So it recommends you speaking to your employer first before making reasonable adjustments, and to see if, because quite often with reasonable adjustments, they don't cost money, and there's just about some quite simple changes that can make your life a lot easier. Employers must make reasonable adjustments to make sure workers with disabilities or physical or mental health conditions aren't substantially disadvantaged when doing their jobs. And that's what they're talking about, levelling the playing field, and that you're not at a disadvantage. And this applies to all workers, including trainees, apprentices, contract workers and business partners. Marcia, do you want to talk a little bit about access to work?
Well, I was going to actually see if I could just go on it and try to.
Yeah, do you want to do that and talk about it?
Yeah. So I did my access to work a year ago now, just over a year ago. But I was going to try to see if we could. Shall
I see if I can open it?
Please, yeah. And just see. I don't know how many people have completed it. I was just going to try and go as far as I can and see where it takes us, just so you can see how it works.
Can you see that?
It's page not found.
Oh,
you've got page not found.
Ooh, okay, hold on. What happened there?
But I think then you're going to have to just be able to type in it, because I won't be able to, will I?
Yeah, I was going to say you have to stop sharing. Yeah. Okay, I think you're there.
Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
And it was just going to click on the apply.
Apply, yeah?
Yeah, click on apply. So I mean, there's all aspects about eligibility and things like that. Actually, there's one step I just wanted. Can you go back again, please? Sorry,
Yeah, which one? Okay.
eligibility. Please.
Yeah.
So this is just to give you an idea. If you go down, sorry, keep going down, and yeah. So I just wanted to highlight where it says about eligibility, and I mentioned that earlier, that it can be for self-employed. So if you're self-employed, you'll be entitled to access to work. An apprenticeship of any type, you'll be entitled, and a work trial or placement, and also an internship. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those. So an apprenticeship is where you get paid and you may be training. A work trial is what it says. You may be on a work trial. You can get some support with access to work. It may be even probably a ramp or something like that. And internship is like it still could be temporary. You're maybe doing an internship for a year within employment. It also has about how you travel. So if you've got mobility, there's an aspect to that as well that you can highlight. So if we just go to apply now, and I don't know if you'd mind tapping in, Liz, because it does. I tried it earlier. You can obviously, but it does go forward. So this is how the form.
Actually look at the application process.
Yes. So you can call up. I think we spoke about this last time we spoke. You can call up and actually do it over the phone if you have real difficulties. And Becky mentioned that to us, that she did that. So yeah, it's got things about COVID and stuff like that. Yeah, and so continue. And then if you could put dyslexia in, Liz. So we're just giving you an example of what it looks like. I've done it by myself, but I know not everybody can do it. But sometimes it's good to see. Do you want to some help to get? I put no, I think. So this. Oh yes, yeah. So yeah, this is about
getting to work. Okay, now I can get to work. Okay.
Yeah. So does your condition make it harder for you to do your job? So yes, and then you got to explain what that tell us a little bit how it's hard. So I just put some things together on Word and typed it out, and then I copied and pasted it. And then do you do anything to get around the problems at the moment? Yes.
Yeah.
And then so do you know what you need to help you? You could say no, or I think I said yes, and then yeah. So just I don't know if everyone's getting an idea. It's probably not going to go any further because we need to probably put
I didn't put in the boxes, the free text boxes.
So that's how it is, but you can get help with it. So somebody on the other line can help you to go through the form. I think I've done it one way like that, and this last time in my new employment I did it myself. So does everyone?
The details in the right hand corner, you can see how to get help. There's a telephone number and an email as well.
Yeah, and once you've registered, they will know, they'll see you on the system. But yeah, I think if you're really struggling with the online, I would have urged you to call up. So I know somebody's thinking about it. It is useful to tell your employer, but you can do it independently and then tell your employer afterwards. But it's always it's good to have a working relationship and be upfront with your employers that you're doing it. So this is just to give you a glimpse of what it looks like in the process. But again, I'm happy, to help anybody with it. But they are there to help you. The Access to Work have got a team of people to help you.
Okay.
So that's
okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, that's just, I hope that gives you a little bit of an insight to how it works.
And some people I know, they've dealt with Access to Work all themselves, and their line manager hasn't been involved really at all. And they've found their own tutor or coach, and I've worked with them, and I've had no involvement with the workplace at all. So you can keep it quite separate if you want to. You just have to deal with the the purchasing people to get your equipment and technology. Marcia?
Okay, so what does it offer? So a needs assessment. So that's somebody, because it was last year I had someone come to the office and actually assess me. So and met with me. They didn't meet with my line manager, and I was okay about that. But I know some people do have the meeting with managers as well. So they view your workplace, investigate your role and tasks. So the person I spoke to, they talked to me about my role and what I do and what they feel would best suit me. What I've always said, and I think we've said it before, is that prior to this assessment, it's so important, again, use us or you use these forums to find out what kind of equipment is out there, and whether that would be suitable to meet your needs. I know Catherine's done a report, I don't know if we can send it, of all the different kind of softwares, Catherine, that is available.
Yeah, we can send that. We can send that list of technology that's available. It's a good list, actually.
Yeah.
And then analysis of it, the gaps, really, of people's knowledge. That's what I did.
Yeah, so that list, when Catherine sends it to you, is really useful to look through, talk to people, do some research yourself, go on YouTube, see how it works, see if these things would be useful to you. I really can't stress enough that you get to know a little bit about the software, because sometimes, even though assessors can be trained, they sometimes have this kind of tick off, oh yeah, have Dragon, have Clara, have MyMap, these things will be great. From the sound of it, it just feels like it's not natural to your individual needs. So you need to really talk about what you want. It's really important. So that's the aspect of assisted technology. Now, I didn't ask for the coaching. The assessor, I did have things put at me, and this was one of them. The coaching, I had it with Genius Within, which you may know about, which is headed up by Nancy Doyle, and she does a lot of things about occupational health. She's an occupational health. So I had part of her program by having a coach, which was called Positive Psychology, and it wasn't about my workplace, it was about me and about my building my confidence and self-esteem. And I had it for 8 weeks, and I probably think it was one of the best things that could have happened to me within my dyslexic journey. We did different techniques and strategies to look at my self-esteem, and also, and I mentioned, I don't shy away about this, but my trauma that does come and affects me, about my experiences that I've had in the past with dyslexia, and how it can come back to, kind of when you didn't think, you thought you shut it away, and there it was again. You're feeling like you were 10 and you didn't understand, and you had a lot of self-doubt, the imposter syndrome. So I had some of those things that I internalized in myself, and then would come out, in different parts of my work. And when I can do the job, but all of these things of feeling self-doubt came out. So we did a lot of work around that. And, I've come out feeling a lot more accepting of me and my differences, and it's okay. So I really would urge, if there is a coaching opportunity, it doesn't have to be with Genius Within, but something around personal growth and development, about your neurodiversity, I would say to consider it. I really benefited from the coaching, and I would recommend it as something to explore, because it's about making informed choices. Anything we talk about, and obviously the list, it would be about you. Like, I didn't have the mapping thing, because I find that too much work to map something, which I like to write anyway. I don't want something where I'm having to then map it and put it into little boxes. That's just too much for me. Some people that might be useful, but it wasn't. So it's getting to really know your assisted technology, and getting to have that kind of relationship with the assessor. Don't let them just fob you off with things. So those are kind of my tips, even though we haven't got to tips, but those are some of my things, because it's so fresh in my head. I remember it so well from last year. I would just do some research, get to know what assisted technology, and Catherine will send us the research that she's done, and the kind of list that would be, it's really useful. And I think coaching was the best thing that happens for me, for my journey, to work on myself, so I can develop my self-esteem and confidence. As old as I have become in my 40s, I still have those kind of triggers that I feel that there's self-doubt. And it's a daily, it's not, it happens daily, but it's that kind of changing that mindset and thinking it's not me. This is the way my brain works, but it's the internal things. And that's why we really kind of champion the social model, because it's about some of the systems what are in place that disables us. So I hope that's helpful in sort of expressing what's on offer. I've gone a bit further, but it's a passion for me. it's also a painful journey that I had to go through to get to where I am now, to feel that I'm okay with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I want
That
to say
definitely makes
also
sense.
that the one-to-one coaching is really good for me as well. But instead of talking about the dyslexia and how it affects me, or how it affects my self-esteem, it was actually more geared towards specific tasks. So for instance, if I had to prepare for a union meeting, talking with my union rep about my dyslexia, or if I had to prepare to go and talk to my boss about something, or if I had to prepare for a project, what kind of things I could ask for, what kind of things, that kind of thing. It was much more practical every day. And so each meeting I had with them, we worked on a separate task so that I could achieve it.
Absolutely.
Which was really great. It was really great. Yeah.
Because it's personal centered, depending on the coaching styles, but it's personal centered. So I had one and I'm sharing this space, to how to talk to my manager, because those experiences of feeling like, oh gosh, I'm asking again, those feelings of, oh, I've got to ask, I don't know. It's all going back to my school experience, feeling like you have to keep asking because you don't know. And it's not that you don't know, you maybe you're not processing it in the way. So I had that conversation and we sort of acted it out. So it's what you want it to be. And then sometimes it brings out other things that you now know you need to work on, because you didn't realize that was still an issue for you. Do you see what I mean? In the workplace. So it's what
a good coach will help you with what you need, and each person has individual needs. So definitely that is a very good thing. And in fact, although the assistive technology people were really great, in the end, because of time factor and the availability I had to spend on the assistive technology, I found that less helpful, and the coaching was more helpful. So it's a good place to start, definitely.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about coaching a bit more, but I went off a bit because it was just to sort of give you it in context.
No, I think what you said was really, really useful. I really did. And thing is, it's like we're on the same page. It's like you are literally telling my story. As you're talking, I'm totally with you. Everything that you've discussed is pretty much how I feel and what's pretty much happened through my life. So it's I really like this group for that. Not that we've all had to endure, but the fact that we're not enduring on our own. That we're not the only ones who feel in that exact same way. One thing I would say, because your coaching sounded absolutely brilliant that you got, I think when you're giving coach for Access to Work, there's obviously a massive scale, because I had my first coaching and I wasn't sure. I asked him, I had my first one this week, and I said, so what are we discussing then? He says, oh well, this one's for your mental health, and this is to help you feel better and stuff like that. Well, let me just say, I felt 10 times worse. The guy was about 20 years old. He looked like he was playing on his phone while he was still talking about. I swear he got a bouncy ball because I had one going like this. And then he drew a seesaw and told me I'd got this is my mental stress, this is my other, and with all my issues. I was like, and I'm paying, well, Access to Work's paying, and then we have a bucket with positive and negative, and I need to write down all the things that make me happy, all the things that make me feel sad, the stresses.
No, Becky,
and work it out. It was awful.
I think you need to look at whether you can get a new coach with that particular organization, or change it entirely, because they are different companies, aren't they? And if that's not working for you, so Liz will know more than me. Sorry, but
sorry. It's just that's just awful. And
it did seem awful. I've got to say, it was the company Access to Work put on the link, and Work just paid for it. But I don't know who they are. I'm gonna have to pull it out.
I think you're gonna have to pull that one out. Yeah, that don't sound right. We're not even gonna go there. What that sounds like.
But it's really cool, because that could happen to anyone. Thank you, Becky, for bringing that up, because it's such a valuable opportunity. I mean, I've had people, sorry, I hope I didn't butt in, but it just made me think of last year, I had someone come through to me, and he said, like, he went through two coaches, and he said, but he was quite a confident person, although he was in a terrible situation at work, but he was like, I'm not having it. And he would keep going back to Access Work saying, I want something different. And he found me, I think, through Patos. And but he grilled me at the beginning. You know, it was like, what are you offering me? What's your experience? Is your experience with adults in the workplace? And sort of sussed me out, which is fair play. You know, why should he? It's because you're time pressured as well. We don't want it to be a waste of your time.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
it
come at
definitely
it
felt
from
like
that,
that.
you know, you're time pressured. You are, you know, an hour or 2 hours out of your week is a big thing. So, you know, you are entitled to grill. And I would say, you know, interview them. It's not just about, you know, what are you going to offer me? You know, I will talk about within the presentation in a couple of slides, we're going to talk about the coaching because it is so valuable and it can really help turn people around. And that could be anything. And I mean, that could mean anything. It can just be feeling better about yourself. It doesn't mean, you know, maybe sometimes it's about thinking about the job fit. Is it right fit? Are you happy there? You know, is it the sort of place where you want to be? Is it bringing out the best in you? Is it recognizing your strengths? You know, sometimes we have those discussions. But it's really important that you feel better after your session. And if you don't, so I would say just when you're calling them, ask them some questions and suss them out before you go ahead and book the sessions. Otherwise, look elsewhere. And I'd happily advise you or point you in directions and help you find somebody as well.
I think
Do you know if you've already paid them? Because I think it's a block session for Access to Work, and then where it's paid, they book this block session. Because as I say, I just sent them the information that Access to Work, and she told me we've got another 4 sessions with us. And I've gone back to them a couple of times saying I weren't happy with the last one. And then I had some different sort of training, so I weren't happy with that either. So and they're like, well, you've paid for it now. So I'm wondering whether I might be able to say, well, I'm so not happy that I want to maybe see if I can get a refund and go to our work, because it's the same company that's producing all this training. But I've had 3 different things and all of them have been dire and they all seem to be done by kids.
I'd love to ask who the organizer, just so that it can, you know.
I'll find out. It's on my piece of paper, so I'll find out and I'll send it over.
Not that everyone's going to have the same experience, but it's just good to have a list of, you know, organizations.
Wants to avoid, yeah.
The ones that you've had experience, you know, so you can know, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll find it out on my piece of paper and I will ping that over.
Okay, thank you. I think there was somebody else who had a question when I was speaking, but I don't know who it was.
I don't think so.
No, it's my imagination.
There's nobody putting their hand up. So
okay.
No.
Well, I'm putting things in chat.
Yeah, but they're not questions, Adrian. They're statements.
Well, okay, but it's contributions. There needs.
It's not a question.
Well, okay, but that's a bit pedantic. Yeah.
Anybody know what pedantic means? Does anybody know what that means?
I do. Yeah.
It means I'm being picky. I'm being true. It was a comment. It's not a question. But go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the kind of upsides of like this. I mean, I'm in a very different situation now, out of it, thank God. But one of the upsides of the lockdown is that, you know, they're finally doing all these things online that we campaigned for years and were constantly rejected. And now it's all been pushed through.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. There must be no going back to the previous situations, you know, under any circumstances. You know, they wouldn't even consider things like Zoom or anything like that, or home working. It seems like a, you know, management privilege and all this kind of stuff, all this kind of nonsense. So
are you suggesting that people make sure they put that in their assessments that they need?
And it's no going back. Never.
Yeah. Okay.
Never, ever, ever. I mean, as a brain injury survivor, I actually, you know, belong to one charity called the Silver Lining, which is a very good charity. And you know, this has got to be that's the actual name of the charity, and it needs there needs to be no going back to the previous situation. We need to make sure that things go on, because it's been proven it can be done now.
Yeah.
That they constantly were rejecting it and so on. I mean, even like going back to 2009, we had this thing on, it's supposed to be about neurodiversity and access to the built environment, British Standards Institution. And for the first meeting, they wouldn't give anyone, and it was meant to include like virtual access, just access by phone or by things like that. The next meeting, we had someone who happened to nominate as a dyslexic wheelchair user, last minute change. And so because she was a wheelchair user as well, they had to do it. And that was supposed to be about neurodiversity. And I pointed that out at my online meeting. We rejected all these things.
Yeah.
And it was kind of broadcast in front of everyone, but now you had to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but I would say as well is that, but one size, Adrian, it doesn't fit all. So
it doesn't. But we want to make sure that we don't lose the game.
Agile, working from home, it doesn't suit everybody.
No, it doesn't,
and that's
but people were being rejected it. I asked for it for years.
Yeah.
And that was as a union rep, an activist, and all the rest of it, a specialist union rep, and so on. No. So eventually, I just took redundancy and left. And 8 years of this rubbish, so we really have to make sure that those gains are hammered down, and that there's no going back. And the customer is king. We're the customer. We're the kings. That's it. And we got to be really hard line on that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to alert everyone. It's 8:20 now. I'm just wondering what we want to do. As people are getting a bit tired, do we want to do the rest of it next week? If I tell you what we're looking at next week, what we're covering, shall I?
I'd like to point out one more thing. I was sort of like the disability rep for the kind of whole of the pension service within the DWP as part of that kind of structure, and one of the two people on the National Civil Service representing DWP on their disability staff network. And I was actually at one point acting chair of the DWP staff network, despite being in the second lowest grade. Basically, there's there was quite a lot of resistance to what we were trying to do, even though you had something that's coming down from top civil servants, like the number 2 in the DWP, supported letters and things like that, and then local management just ignored him. And then second permanent secretary, there's only one job above that, who was on that committee, and did turn out actually to have some neurodivergence issues, but he is sufficiently senior that he could actually had his own office and things like that.
Okay, thank you. I'm just conscious of the time, and someone has to go, so how about we pick up on, because there's so much for everyone to discuss, and I really want to make sure that everyone has a chance to share, and we've got a couple of breakout rooms that we want to do next week. And what we're also going to talk about is talk in detail a bit more about what happens at the needs assessment for those of you who haven't had one. And also I'd like to explain what should happen in the coaching, and also share some strategies, approach with you.
Sorry, Anne, you've got to mute yourself.
And share tips and strategies, and do a couple of breakout rooms. So what I'd like you to have a think about before next week, if that's okay, is just pull your ideas together about what specific challenges do you feel are out there for neurodivergent people in the workplace, and what has been the impact of those challenges, but also what specific things help. What has made a difference? Have you got any specific strategies or things that have helped changed and turn things around? So if you just want to have a think about that, and then we'll start with the breakout rooms next week, and then we'll talk you through some strategies, the coaching, and some more ideas about the technology, and share some tips. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I can't see anybody. I don't know if anyone can see the gallery, but are people saying that's okay, or is it in the chat?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
good. Yeah, I think that's good. Everyone's
that's
saying
good,
that's good. Yeah.
There's a lot of nodding and thumbs up on there.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, because then we've got good time to actually, I want you all to have a time to share, because you're all got so many experiences, and it's great because some of you have been through access to work and getting the support, and some of you haven't, or maybe at the beginning of that journey. So I think we can all help each other and get us all to a better place. And I don't know if Dee's there, but I think definitely when Dee sets up the WhatsApp group, this can carry on after the next step. And you can always contact us because, oh, hi Dee, I can see the yep.
Yeah, she's there.
We can support each other, and it's an ongoing process. And also the workplace changes, and that's what I say to my line managers. And when I go into the workplace, it's when we finish the training, it doesn't mean you're fixed. You are neurodivergent, it's part of you. And also you might change job, you might get promoted, you might leave, you might change role. And so things have to be reevaluated. So it's an ongoing process, and there are different challenges and different opportunities along the way. So, it doesn't stop after the coaching stops or after you've had your 6 sessions. Life's a journey, it's ongoing. Well, the workplace is a journey.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just stop and, a light switch goes off. So, let's talk things through, and I think we've got some more things to unpack and discuss. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? This has been recorded, but I actually think there's quite a lot of sensitive stuff here to do with people's stories. Usually I send the recording out to everybody on our list for the next step. But I think what I'll do is I'll just send the recording to this group, if that's okay.
I think that's a good
Yeah.
good judgment. Yeah.
I agree.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll know from the chat who's been here, so it's okay.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing, my personal stuff, as I've now essentially rather out of it. And I think it does make for interesting, things for people to observe. And
I don't think it's for everybody though. I mean, I shared about my manager.
I think probably just keep it within the group. I think is probably a better idea.
No, people need to feel safe.
What we're saying is we're just sharing with this group. That's what we're saying.
I think some of the information I've said is a bit sensitive. So,
I agree. I'm just saying I've put some things in chat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I get what you. Yeah, I get. Thank you, Adrian.
One thing.
Yeah. Okay. So.
We finished.
Yes, and please, if there's anything you want us to cover for next week as well, just put it in the chat as well, so we just know.
How about
send us anything before next week. If you have any particular questions or what you want us to cover, just do email when Catherine sends out the mailing, the note, the Zoom link. Just email back a question or prepare it and bring it to the breakout room, and then we'll feed back those ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well, it remains to be left to say many thanks to Marcia and Liz, because they worked so hard on this presentation. All these sessions, there's somebody in the background working away incredibly hard to present to you, and they've done a fab session today and got you really engaged and got some really interesting experiences, and I think we've shared really well today. We've learned a lot from each other. So many thanks to Liz and Marcia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah, thank you to all of you as well for sharing.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Next week you're going to have the rest of the presentation as Liz and Marcia are saying, and now we are going to say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you for being a fab group.
Thanks again. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Becky. Becky, you're my twin.
Oh, we are literally. It was so lovely. I was like, I'm gonna go tell Paul. I'm like, we are just the same. I'm going to be telling
Yeah.
everybody. So no,
Twins.
so twins.
my twinny.
That's it.
Okay. Have a
Take
good
care.
evening.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
Bye.